I'm going to introduce our speaker for the week. And this is Rick Case. Most of you probably already know him. But here's just a little background on him. Rick grew up on a farm near Wakefield in Clay County, right? So north. Attended Kansas State University for his bachelor's and his master's, and then began working for the Farm Service Agency in 1985 as county executive director for Butler County, and advanced to district director for FSA in 2006, provided supervision to 14 South Central Kansas counties and 4 loan offices, and then retired in 2021 when he became first gentleman. He also manages his family's 1,100-acre farm in Clay County. So I asked Rick to tell me something that most people are not going to know about him. And this is what he said. My dad leveled an area below one of our ponds and put a pipe and valve through it so I could irrigate from the pond when I was 13. For me to have a larger garden. It was about half an acre in size, and I raised so much produce. My mom would send me to neighbors to give it away, and eventually I sold produce to the local grocery stores, so I was actually farm to table way before it gained so much popularity. So, Rick.
Thank you. Well, appreciate that, Rosemary. Rosemary asked me to put this presentation together, and Sarah Ornalis from Strategic Communications has done a fantastic job putting together a group of slides that are reflective of what's going on campus. But before we get started, I want to give credit to the man. This is Lowell Kaufman here in the front row. Lowell is one of the supervisors with facilities here on campus, and Lowell is the reason that things happen. I may have ideas, and he has lots of ideas, and we bounce off of each other. But when it comes to the actual implementation, Lowell's the reason things get done here. And so a lot of the beauty you see across campus is the credit is here and his crew, and they just do a phenomenal job. When I first came here, yes, cheers for Lowell and facilities. When I first came to Wichita State, we moved into the president's residence, and I thought I could do it myself. And it didn't take me very long to figure out that wasn't going to happen. And so Lowell has done just an amazing job, and you'll see that as we go through the slides. A couple of things I want you to take away from today. Gardening matters, and the reason it matters is we have a couple of opportunities here with students. First of all, we want to make a good, positive first impression. When we have students come onto campus, a lot of them come with their parents. Some of them come from cities nearby, some of them from cities far away, some of them from across the planet. And we want to make a good impression when they come and visit Wichita State so that we can get them to come here and go to school. Secondly, we want to keep them here, and that is to make them part of the community. And so Wichita State is not just Wichita State, it's part of Wichita and our community. And so how we present as a university is important for us, not only as a university, but for us as a community here in Wichita. So first slide you see here is just, those of you who are really familiar with Millie. This is when the tulips are in full bloom, and the tulips often last about a week, 10 days, correct, Lowell? Yeah. So depending on the weather and whether we have a hailstorm or what goes on. Anyway, if you'll advance to the next slide. We're going to start off here at the president's residence. You can see this is off the north patio. These people walking through. How many of you got an opportunity to attend the Kansas State Master Gardeners Tour this past spring? Okay, a couple of you did. And so you probably got to see the president's residence. We were featured along with Woolsey Hall. I went and looked at the plaques this morning because I didn't know exactly what the dates were that had been on before. But first time Wichita State's president's residence was featured was in 2001. Second time was in 2009. And then this past year, and we have a big plaque that says K-State, which I happen to be an alumni of, Master Gardener Tour for 2025. So we featured the residents as well as Woolsey Hall. And we'll get to Woolsey in a little bit. Next slide, please. This is a shot of and it's just a beautiful photo of the cutting gardens on the north side. If you're familiar with the residence, if you've been there before, you come in the driveway through the gates, and this is off to the north or to the right-hand side as you're headed west. And this is the, I don't know, the fish fountain. And did we ever figure out who donated that to us, Lowell? He'll think of it. It was donated many, many years ago and sits in the cutting garden. The cutting garden originated with, I think, Shirley Beggs. She liked to have fresh flowers, and so she wanted a resource right there close by. And so this area is known as the cutting garden. So if you'll advance to the next slide. There's a lot of shade in that area as well, and so Lowell and I talked about this, and we've started to bring in some more shade plants. You'll see some hostas there in the back, and then further on, closer to the fence, we've added a whole bunch more. So next slide, please. This is in right along the driveway in the cutting garden. Sometimes we have gardening, tomatoes in there, and then some annual flowers. Right there by the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that. We kind of have had to move the tomatoes because it's a little too shady in there. And they get loaded with tomatoes, but they don't seem to get ripe in time for us to beat the fall frost. So we've moved those into a different part of the yard. Next slide, please. This is the front of the president's residence. Those of you who've probably been there before. Before there was a lot of renovation done in 2006 and added the entertainment areas, this would have been the primary way you would have entered into the house. One of the things we do, we've hosted, Gabe Von Zecka told me that we were approaching 200 student lunches over the 5 years that Rick has been president. We host a lot of events, a lot of picnics in the fall. This area would be to the right of the front there, is a pretty shaded area, and we did not have a sprinkler system. When Rick and I moved in 6 years ago, there were sprinklers on the east side of the grounds, but nowhere else throughout the residence. And so one of the things we did add was a sprinkler system because you couldn't grow anything. And for me, that's just that is just terrible. If you can't grow something, I'm not going to be happy there. And so they put in a sprinkler system for us. This area here, the little raised area where the rock is, Lowell goes in there and he puts all kinds of annuals in there along with the perennials that you can see. And it's just absolutely beautiful. One of the things we did, you can see the tree there. We zipped off all of the ivy because that was stealing the nutrients from the tree. I was really concerned that we would lose that tree. We have lost some of the older trees on the grounds due to the droughts over the years. It's a little better now that we have the sprinkler system going, so even the trees get some water. I wanted to be able to have grass for the picnics because these kids, they come in, the Koch scholars, the Rudd scholars, the Wallace scholars, the student ambassadors, they come in, they're all dressed up, look really nice, and I'm putting them out there in the dust. And so now that we have some sprinklers, we actually have grass, and it's a lot more conducive to having a picnic where they can wear their nice clothes and look okay when they walk away. Next slide, please. This little area, this is my little lantana spot. I fill that full of lantana. It attracts a lot of butterflies. It's on the south side of the residence there, on the west side towards the south end. Next slide, please. This area, those of you familiar, this is just the 17th Street right there in the back, and this is along behind Wilner. This area had kind of grown up to brush, basically. There was not a lot of anything good in there. There's several dead trees. And so I talked to Lowell about cleaning this up. And this is really about the first year. So this slide's probably from about 4 years ago, I would say. And we went in and we put in some native plants and a bunch of perennials, and then we accent that as well. And if you go to the next slide, this is kind of how it looks now. And we take a lot of photos with student groups out in front of this because it's really picturesque and looks really nice. And it's just one of my favorite places. Some of Grandma's iris is there from Clay County in the front there. So, next slide, please. When we moved into the residence, and if it sounds like it was in a little bit of a disrepair, it kind of was. Between the time the Beggs lived there, the Bardos lived there initially, but because of some health challenges for them, they weren't able to live in the residence for a bigger portion of John's presidency. And so there was no one there on the grounds on a daily basis. And so it was cared for, but not as attentive as if someone was living there all the time. And then Rick and I are both like, Lowell will tell you, we're kind of crazy about keeping on top of stuff. And so when we moved there, this was just a brick patio. And I originally told Lowell there was a trellis there you can see along the brick. I told Lowell I'd like to have a couple of wisteria plants on there to utilize that trellis. And then the more it started to grow, the more I'm like, well, then I need something for shade, something for it to grow onto. And so we put in the pergola, kind of inspired off what used to be down at Larkspur, you know, how they had the area there with all the wisteria. So this was initially, you can see the areas there were just grass along the side. Really wasn't very conducive to utilizing this space for much of anything. It is on the southwest corner of the house, and so it gets kind of hot there. And so we put the pergola in, and that helps provide a little shade and something for wisteria to grow on. So anyway, next slide. Then we went ahead and decided that to really finish off this space, an outdoor fireplace would allow us to utilize the space even in the spring and fall when it gets a little cooler or it hasn't quite warmed up enough. One of the things we did, not this year, but last year, we hosted an ice skating event for the students. I don't know if any of you as faculty were aware of that. But we did have a s'more area out here, and they didn't do it over the fireplace, but we did have tables and burners set up. And we had about 400 students show up. So we had a big crowd to ice skate. They had a various other things, a photo booth and things like that. But the s'mores area underneath the pergola and by the fireplace was very, very popular. So anyway, that was a good use of this space. Next slide, please. This shows you a little video, and this is going around behind the fireplace. And I tell you, this man is talented, and now you can see it. Because he has put together, those of you who were on the garden tour probably saw this, but Lowell just did a phenomenal job and has made this into just a wonderful space for entertaining people. And we get lots of compliments from students, from donors, people in the community. And we do try to open up the residence as much as we possibly can. The funding for these projects does not come out of student fees. We get a percentage of the profits from Chartwell's to fund the house. We turn around and use those proceeds to maintain and improve so that we have a great space to utilize here for our community. So, next slide. This is the north patio. Originally, when we came in, this was basically river rock and then some of those big lava things, you know, those black lava things. And it wasn't what I would have liked to have seen there. So I went to Lowell and I said, can we make this a little more conducive, a little more just welcoming environment than just a rock area? And so we did that, and he does a wonderful job. This is when it's kind of not fully grown, so the plants there aren't as big as they will get throughout the season, but it really, really looks nice. Then we have some pots that we have on the patios as well, and then a water feature as well. So next slide then. Going to move over to Woolsey Hall. How many of you been over there and checked that out? Okay, that's pretty phenomenal. It's a LEED certified building, and so we go for reduced runoff. There's a lot of areas that are not sprinklered there. We have a lot of native plants at Woolsey. If you go to the next slide. Okay, this is a weed, a bunch of weeds, okay? Rick came to me the first year the contractors put in all of the plants, and then they just kind of walked away and turned it over to us. And those of you who have heard the term zero maintenance, that's not true. There's never zero maintenance. There's always maintenance to go along with any kind of planning that you're going to have. And I think John Tomlin, he is really frustrated with the way things looked, and I think he just wanted to take Roundup and just spray everything and start over. And I just told him, I said, so let me have a chance, and this is where the sculpture is at in the west parking lot of Woolsey Hall. And so I said to John and Rick, and I think Werner Goling was in on that as well. I said, let me have a crack at it before you do that. And so if you go to the next slide, this is a video after I got on my hands and knees and spent a day out there going through and pulling out the weeds. And what do you know? There's all kinds of forbs in that area. And if you go to look at that now, Lowell and crew have mulched in there, and then we've had a few years' growth. And so in the next couple of weeks, if you have the opportunity to be on campus, please do. Go over to Woolsey, because there's going to be an explosion of color, and you're going to just be amazed at how well these native plants look. And it's the zero maintenance concept, that's not really true. But if you do take care of it and you get rid of the undesirables, there's lots of things there that you will see will come to fruition. So next slide. This is the south side of Woolsey. These are more formal gardens, and this is irrigated. It's layered beds there. Originally, the contractors had gone in and they had just done rows of red hibiscus. And our dean was from California, and she was not happy with how all of the initial contractor work was done. And so Lowell and I literally got a tablet out, and we walked the grounds, and we decided which plants we were moving, and we changed it all around and got a much more diverse look there. Added grasses, some different colored hibiscus, and then he's put in all kinds of native plants. And then we bring in some annuals then each year as well. So you go into the next slide. This is one of our art features. And as we go through the slides, you're going to see a few of those. This looks like wood, right? It's not. I went to the presentation when it was dedicated, and this horse sculpture is actually the lady that did it. She found she goes walking through the woods and she finds the sticks that she wants to use. She puts them together, then she puts like some kind of casting on it, and then she burns out the wood. And then in the casting, she fills that with metal. So this is actually a sculpture that will not deteriorate. And Lowell and I brought in some grasses around the base of it. The rest of it is native areas, and we kind of let that just generate however it will. We do cut volunteer trees and stuff like that out of it, but otherwise it's pretty much native, and that's what you see here. If you look at the bridge, if you go out onto the bridge, it's the Promise Bridge. We encourage students to go make that promise with their parents when they're freshmen, for the student to promise that they will finish. Parents promise they'll help support them to get there. But it's really great when you look at those gardens, you see the horse grazing in the pasture, and then behind it you have your more formal gardens of Woolsey. So, next slide. This shows you a little bit of the diversity there. We have some of the tropicals. Lowell starts those, probably has them yay high by now. He starts them in the greenhouse, and then we move them out and incorporate them along with the native plants. And you can see some of the red hibiscus. We didn't get rid of them, we just moved them around. So, next slide, please. And this shows you a little bit of what it looks like if you were to spend some time walking through there. We are sensing a lot more community traffic on campus. We see lots of people walking their dogs, joggers, and not just students. These are people from the community that are utilizing our space. So, next slide. Again, changed out some of the red ones. We tried to, these are red cherry, weeping cherry, is that right, Lowell, the tree? See, I'm putting him on the spot. Anyway, he'll come with it. But anyway, we tried to do the red trees with the white hibiscus, and then we have some blue atlas cedars on down there towards the right. You'll see with the red, so we have the blue and the red and the white with the red, and broke that up, brought in some switchgrass, and then Lowell accentuates that with, or accents that with tropicals along with the native plants. So, next slide, please. Our dean wanted something besides just grasses going up to the west entrance to Woolsey Hall, and so we added some smaller beds. That way we did not lose our LEED certification, but we also could add some character that she was looking for. And so this is kind of early on in the season. As those fill in, it becomes much more full. Next slide, please. Another area here. We added all of this, and this is on the west side of Woolsey Hall. There's lots of times we'll see people just up reading in this area, just relaxing. There's tables along the south side of Woolsey. It's a cafe in there. You can go in, I believe it's called Cargill Cafe. You can go in there and get your coffee, just sit out there, enjoy the water, look at the flowers, just have all kinds of nature there for you to enjoy. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to move to this Shocker sculpture area. Those of you familiar, it's south of like Wiedemann and Dirksen in that area. If you go to the next slide, this is a Shocker sculpture when it is fully full of hay. I'm actually on the Ulrich board, and they were having a problem because they were attempting to fill that with hay from square bales. Well, that doesn't work because the hay was falling out. And so they asked me, could I work with James Porter? And I said, sure. What do you need me to do? And help him figure out how to make this work. And he told me, he said, it's a really labor-intensive process. And he said he was trying to put, if you go to the next slide, he's trying to put the hay into these plastic cylinders, basically. He's wrapping that, but the shorter hay was falling out whenever he would cut those off. And so I said, well, your problem is you need brome grass and you need big round bales. So we got big round bales, started wrapping the brome grass, which gets about 4 or 5 feet tall, versus the square bales, which are going to be about 12 inches. And so that was why the hay was falling out. If you go to the next slide, you can see on there the top part where the heads of the Shocker sculptures are. That's the finished product up there. It is very labor intensive because he has to hand stuff all of the hay into those plastic cylinders, and then he cuts them off after he has wrapped them with around there. You can see the wrapping in the top part. So anyway, that's the Shocker sculpture. All that area is native. And so if you want to see what the Kansas Prairie looks like, that's an area of campus that you can actually go see some of our artwork and also what the native prairie looks like. So next slide. This is one of my favorite things on campus, and this is where retirees, you're an invaluable resource. If you know how to pull a weed, I need you at the community garden, okay? If you go on to the next slide, this is where our community garden originally was. And the green group at Wichita State normally takes care of this. This is on the northeast side of Woolsey Hall. This is where it was. But it had so little visibility that no one, I'm not even sure some of the people that worked in Alberg really realized it was there, because there's a wall along there, and you know, people have their head down in their phone and they walk into the building and don't even know there's a garden there. So we thought maybe it would be wise to move it to a higher, or to a more visible location. And so about 2 years ago, we decided in the fall, I guess not quite 2 years ago, we decided we would move this. And so if you go to the next slide, this is where it was, across from the water tower in the parking lot. Nobody really paid too much attention to it. We were down to, when I stepped in and started helping with it, it was basically a weed patch. And we had one kid that was president of the green group, and he was the only kid in the organization at that time. And he showed up one day there. I was going to meet him there and help him, and he had 2 pepper plants and 2 tomatoes. And we had about 20 raised beds. So I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work. So we tried to make a go of it that first year, and then we decided to move it. So if you go on to the next slide, this is where it is now. It's on the east side of the RSC. Have any of you been over there to take a look at that? Kind of modeled this off of what I saw in Denver. We have a small loft in Denver that's by Union Station along one of the rivers, the Platte River there. And there's an area where it's kind of raised up, kind of similar to this. They have raised beds, and then on each end they have little patios. And on the weekends, there will be groups out there doing yoga while other people are working in the gardens. And so we thought this would be a higher profile area where we would develop more interest in what's going on with the community gardens. So if you go to the next slide. And here is some of our students this past spring when they were working with this. And you can see they're planting tomatoes. And these plants came, this young man right here, his name's Lexton Beatty Parks. He grew those plants in his dorm room. He was a freshman. And he told me when I was helping him with this project, he says, "You're making my roommate the happiest man on campus." And I'm like, "Why is that?" And he's like, "Because you're getting this all out of our room." So anyway, he's been a tremendous help there. So next slide. It's kind of an aerial shot. The Shocker Success Center with the Shocker Locker is also in the building that used to be Clinton Hall. And in there, we take any excess produce that we have from the gardens. We had a very successful first year. We'll see if that continues. And this is where you can help if you want to plant or pick or weed. It's open to the community, and anybody who wants to gather produce. I had several international students that came up to me and asked if they could pick produce. And I'm like, absolutely, this is what it's for. So anyway, next slide. This shows you a little later in the season how successful it was. We did have a lot, even had some construction workers working on campus ask if they could pick some of the produce. And so it's really open to whoever. And then we even had some of our staff had to learn how to actually harvest basil. So Sarah learned how to actually harvest basil. And so it's a really great educational tool. And I've been just stunned, literally, at the connections I've made just working in this garden. And I think that could be for you as well, because there will be students come up and just start asking questions. It's a great way to meet faculty, people who work on campus, even the construction workers. And so last year I usually tried about 11 o'clock on Fridays. I'd go up there for a while each day, or each Friday of each week, and spend some time. And then Lexton was really, really good in his green group about maintaining it. But you're all welcome to come help do that. So next slide. Shows you a little bit of the production there. We were very prolific in our pepper production this last year. So anyway, next slide. Originally I said something to you about being the first impression. And I think our entrances to the university are one of the most important ways that we can welcome people from our community across the state, really across the world to Wichita State. And by maintaining those areas and having them be a welcoming environment, it really is reflective on us as a whole. Rick's always comparing it. Every time we travel, we go to a different university and look. And he's always like, Wichita State is better. So he's a little biased, but the landscaping here is top notch. And again, I got to give you a lot of credit for that. Next slide. Another entrance here. Next slide.
What are those flowers?
Yeah. So, and then this is up by Millie. Again, a beautiful area across from the Ulrich. See all kinds of students. They draw here. A lot of the fine arts students will be drawing in this area. It's across from the Ulrich. So you just see people constantly taking photos. And again, this is a reflection on all of us. And so, next slide. This is another one of our entrances. Not sure which, I guess that's by that football field you can see there. So, north entrance off 21st Street. Yeah, Coke entrance. Next slide. Okay, this is one of the things that didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on, but it serves two functions. We've struggled over the years to have enough staff to maintain everything. And so a few years ago, a lot of these areas were covered with vegetation, and it was twofold. We weren't able to adequately maintain it, and it was also, in some areas, it was a safety factor for students. They didn't feel safe when there was a lot of vegetation that they couldn't see when they were in the parking lots. And so we opted to put down weed barrier and rock these areas, and that's lower maintenance for us. It's also a safer environment for students and community people to feel like they can go to their cars and somebody's not going to jump out behind a bush. So, next slide. This is me in my natural habitat. Most of the time, if you see me in the summertime, there's two things I'm doing. I'm going to the gym, which is why the workout clothes, and then I'm doing something on campus, looking to see how we can maintain things, work in the gardens. This was Millie, a group crocheted the various covers on there. I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning was for that, but I think it was one anniversary or celebration for it. So anyway, that is me. That's what I look like most of the time in the summer. So next slide. Rick wanted me to put this in. H.R. McMaster will be here. He's going to be here on the 8th at 6 p.m. Tickets are free. They'll probably go pretty quickly. Very, very appropriate time for him to be speaking to us all about what's going on in the world. So feel free to reach out and get tickets if you're interested. Next slide. Pretty much wraps it for me. You can all be part of this, and you are all a reflection on Wichita State. So however you contribute, whatever you do to help us, you're all part of the community. I'm always game for if you stop and pull a few weeds. I've even got John Tomlin, the head of NIAR, that he will stop and pull weeds. He says I pull 5 weeds a day before I go into my office. So, mission accomplished. Anyway, thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to attempt them, or Lowell will do it for me. A weeping red bud. Okay, I knew it was. I said weeping cherry. I was close. That's why I have him.
And then the fountain at the President's
Uh-huh.
was donated by
Let's see, I got to get my glasses because I don't. Okay, let's see.
And he donated.
Oh, Hap Bledsoe. Is that anybody familiar with that? That is who donated the fountain that you saw in the cutting garden. Yeah, to Shirley Bags. Yeah, Sue.
Eric, the one time you mentioned Fridays at 11, we sometimes are there, but for those who might not know the difference between a weed and a plant, or not.
Yeah.
Is there a time when someone is there that can help guide whatever you would like to do?
Yeah, Google. Most of the time, yeah, if you don't know, if you're not sure, then don't pull something out, because that's like when Sarah goes to cut the basil and, don't take the whole plant. So, yeah, but you can always text me and ask questions. I'd be happy to do that. You can, and like I said, if you want to specifically meet a particular time, I'd be happy to meet you there too, because we really do need all the help that we can get. Planting is fun, harvesting is fun, pulling weeds is not so much fun. And that seems to be the thing that we struggle with. Although the beds are raised and they are high profile enough that we have developed a lot of interest from a lot of different people to help out with that. And again, one thing I failed to mention, how many of you have home gardens? If you have extra produce and you're not going to utilize it, bring it to Shocker Locker, because we have as much as 25% of our students are food insecure. I don't know if any of you watched CBS Sunday Morning this week, but it was talking about food insecurity. And we hate to see things go to waste, and that includes fresh produce, because a lot of these kids don't have access to that. So if you have extra tomatoes, you want to bring them into Shocker Locker, they're happy to take them. They're in the first floor of Clinton Hall, what used to be the basement. But it's all. If you haven't been in Clinton Hall, it's pretty amazing. Shocker Success Center now. So, other questions? Yes.
So if people pull weeds to the compost area?
We do, but we don't want. We have a trash can for weeds. We do not want the weeds in the compost area, because that defeats the purpose. You can put excess, plant material in there, but we don't want you to put weeds in compost, because they will just come back up as weeds again. Yeah.
Can you talk a little about the landscaping plans around the medical building?
You can. I'm not sure I know anything about them yet at this point. I can ask Rick. But I'm not familiar with what the plan is. Do you know anything, Lowell? I don't know how many have been down to take a look at the biomedical campus, but oh my gosh, what a massive, massive structure that is. And we are so fortunate here in Wichita to have the funding for something that's going to change our community like that. So, but I'm sure I'll be in on it. Anyway, other questions?
Mm-hmm. They can just appear
anytime
and
yep.
do stuff?
You can. It is open to the community. There is a QR code with some additional information. There's a sign there that you can scan the QR code there. We're going to try to, through strategic communications, keep that updated. We've talked about, and remember, we're a learning, growing process right now. The green group, the kids kind of come and go. And so you may have somebody like Lexton who's really gung-ho, and the next year you don't have that kid. So we're trying to get more information through strategic communications, spit it out here. And that way, as far as harvesting, when things are ready, that sort of stuff. Yes?
Where can you park to get to the community?
Good question. The RSC? Yeah, okay. Is there visitor parking there?
Yeah, the front area in front is for visitors, so you can park there. And then the fourth floor of the parking garage, you can park there too.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Other questions? If not, If you don't have a green thumb, you can still help. We'll take anybody, because you don't have to be great with plants to be able to help us with picking and that sort of stuff. So appreciate your time today. Glad everybody showed up, and happy gardening to all of you.